shelter in the shadows from the creatures of the night. Tentacles that slither just out of sight. Dark curses conjuring an endless dreadful blight. Beware the evil that goes bump in the night, lest you give yourself a fright with Mystic Moon tonight.
You're listening to Mystic Moon Cafe. The views and opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, the network, or our sponsors.
Hey there, welcome to Mystic Moon Cafe. Tonight we've got Rick Gualtieri with us tonight to talk all about his book series and even more fun stuff. But before we get into it with Rick, let me read you a little bio, folks. You might have heard this one before, I'm just saying. Rick Gualtieri is a multi-genre author who loves to write adventure, mayhem, and snarky dialogue. His multiple best-selling series combine all of this into an unholy stew of supernatural danger, bone-breaking action, and plenty of sharp-tongued geeky humor. Rick lives alone in a dark, evil place called New Jersey, with only his wife, 3 kids, and countless pets to both keep him company and constantly plot against him. We'll be talking about pets. When he's not busy monkey clicking, I love that, monkey clicking out words, he can typically be found either playing Dungeons and Dragons, which I have, we might talk about that, losing at video games, and jealously guarding his collection of vintage Transformers, which I hope to steal from all who would seek to defile them. I guess I'm a defiler beware. Hi, Rick. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. You can see some of my Transformers in the background, so do not defile them.
That was one of my favorite gifts as a kid when I got Jetstream. That was a good one from back in the day. I think it was Jetstream. Jetstream? He was a Decepticon?
Jetfire.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, my bad. See, this is what happens when you stop watching the cartoons and stuff and playing. You grow up, people.
Not me.
Before we go too far, I would like to ask about Falcor, see how he's doing. Or it is a he, right? Or is it she?
So Falcor is our bulldog, American bulldog mix.
Oh no!
Super sweet dog. Not the brightest bulb on the planet, but he's a wonderful dog. We love him so much, and he got sick right at the beginning of December. He was going way downhill. We took him to the vet. They really couldn't figure out what was going on, and we actually decided to have him put down. Wait, not done with the story. And we set up an appointment. I guess December's a busy time for that. We couldn't get one for 4 days, and the day after we set up the appointment, he started to get better. So yeah, like he was on this nosedive and suddenly pulled up, and I mean it's like 3 days later when he was supposed to have this appointment. He was eating again. He was gaining strength. So yeah, he pulled up from that nosedive. I mean, he's not back to 100% yet, but he's probably in the 90 percentile right now.
Fantastic!
Yay!
So
happy ending.
Yes.
Did they ever find out what he was?
we spent like something like $5,000 at the vet, and they were like, well, if you want to spend like another $5,000, we could like run more tests. And at that point, it was like, we're kind of broke here. So we were really just taking care of him from the seat of our pants, doing what we can, doing internet stuff. Nearest we can tell, they didn't know what was wrong with him. Nearest we could tell, he was sick with something, like something viral or so, because he was running a fever, his nose was stuffed up, and then we started to get better, all that cleared up, and he started eating again.
Yay. That's perfect.
Yes.
Perfect Christmas gift.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Christmas magic.
Oh,
yes.
Closest I've seen to a Christmas miracle.
Yes. We like those.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm glad Falcor's much better. I would be beside myself. I've got 5 dogs, 4 pitties. 4 of them are pitties, and yeah, I don't know what I would do.
Well, if you want to see pictures of Falcor, pretty much on any of my social medias, I've been sharing pictures of the dog. So
we'll do that.
He's a cutie pie.
I'm gonna go check that out. Wendy, I don't know if you got a lead off question or not, but I need to go check out Falcor on the socials real quick.
Excuse me. Yeah, I did until you asked me about it. All right. What made you make the turn into the Monster Hunter and the cryptozoology?
Okay, so Bigfoot Hunters, which is the first book I have. So first of all, I've always been a cryptozoology nerd. I've always I love the concept of extant prehistoric survivors that have kind of grown wary enough to just stay away from mankind.
I'm that way myself.
Yeah, tell me about it. If I had a toilet in my office, I'd probably never leave. But Bigfoot Hunters kind of started off as really just kind of a challenge to myself, because at the time I was watching a lot of sci-fi channel, and they're absolutely garbage Bigfoot horror movies.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I was Bigfoot Hunter started off as basically a movie script where I was like, I can do better. I was like, I can't do any worse, but I know I can do better. And obviously I didn't have a way to turn it into a movie. So I was like, at that point I had written a couple novels, and I was like, well, why don't I adapt it into a novel? So that was kind of my F you to Hollywood. Okay, here is Bigfoot horror that hopefully is not only entertaining, but effective, and hopefully not stupid.
It hit all the horror marks for sure.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when I got into ghost hunting back in 2007, I was watching those ghosty shows on TV, and I was like, I think I could do this better. And that's how pretty much I got into it.
Oh my God, yeah. It's like, you watch one episode of, say, Ghost Adventures, and you got to say, I can do it better than those guys.
Go. No, please go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I live in a house, with, we have the 2 dogs, we have 3 kids, excuse me, and I have 5 cats. So at any given time, there's some weird noises going on here. So even if it was haunted, I probably would never know. But because of that, I like to think I have that, that thing of going, okay, I'm in an old house. There's a creaking board. Let's check for squirrels first before jumping to conclusions. That's one thing about both cryptozoology and ghost hunting I don't like, is the reality shows that immediately jump to conclusions. I'm not big on camping, but I've been camping a few times in my life, and there's all sorts of things in the woods that make noise, that break branches and stuff, and most of them aren't Bigfoot. Right. Watch these shows where they're like, oh, we're out here, oh, there's a branch breaking, that's obviously Bigfoot, but we're not going to turn the camera that way, so you yeah, a lot of these crypto reality shows, and even the ghost hunting ones, the first 2 seasons of Ghost Hunters, I kind of appreciated because they never found anything. And then apparently Sci-Fi sat them down and said, no, you need to punch this up. You need to find ghosts every week.
Or demons.
Yeah. Or
yeah.
Yeah. So always demons.
Yeah.
I lived in an apartment with a ghost cat, and something. There was really nothing demonic about it. It was just like, okay, every so often I'd see this little black cat run across the apartment. I didn't own a damn cat.
Yeah, that the whole thing with the ghosty shows is now I got all the gadgets. Just I got a big old cabinet right here filled with ghosty gadgets, and I can tell you, I can bring out any one of them to get insta ghost whenever I need it. So I'm just kind of like, meh. And then with the cryptid show, so I've been watching Expedition Bigfoot, which is actually very well made. It's a very well made show for reality, but you're right, you never find a Bigfoot
ever. or Bigfoot scat.
I mean, occasionally there's the footprint, and always comes back, it's a bear. And I'm just like, but these are professional big. Watch the hate come in for this. I'm like, you've been hunting this for like 25 years, and you can't tell the difference between a bear and
and then there's the people who they're like, yeah, I got a Sasquatch in my backyard. I see him every week. Okay, take a photo. Well, and there's always an excuse of why that doesn't happen. And it's like, yeah, okay. And I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. I do believe in Bigfoot. I don't go for any of the wilder theories of oh, it's a dimensional shapeshifter. No, if there is a Bigfoot out there, it's probably a branch off of humanity, an extant survivor, something like that. Smart enough to just stay out of our way. But it can be difficult some days just seeing the crap that people pull just to get some attention.
Yeah, I mean, but the big thing, and this is what intrigues me about cryptozoology, and my 2023 resolution is to do, Wendy saw it today, is to do more crypto stuff, not currency people, monsters. Thank you very much. But I mean, when you look at monsters, we're always discovering new species. My favorite monster is a kraken. And what was it, 2014? They finally found the giant octopus. It was the Japanese trawler or something like that found it.
Yeah, the giant squid.
Yeah, the giant squid. Yeah. So I mean, that intrigues me very much, because we're always finding things. And then there were some dinosaurs like the fish off South Africa, and there was the tortoise that I forgot that they're. Oh, yeah. So that for me, I'd go do that.
Yeah, the coelacanth and stuff. I mean, here's the thing. These things are like mythical monsters until we find them and catalog them.
Right.
I mean, once upon a time, gorillas were these mythical, these mythical monkey men and stuff. Now it's you go to the zoo and you're like, it's a gorilla. So on the one hand, it's kind of I guess if a creature is discovered, it'll be a little disappointing because it'll step out of myth and become actual reality. But at the same time, that'll also kind of be super cool, because it'll be like, okay, let's find out what this thing really is now. Assuming they ever catch one.
Yeah.
Which I know shows like Mountain Monsters are sure as hell not going to do.
No.
Or Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, which. But here's the whole thing about with the species, using gorillas as an example. I was just reading about this when they found the mountain gorillas. I think it was the 1920s, 1930s, something like that. Yeah. They shot 2 of them, and that's how they proved it. I'm like, if someone finds Bigfoot, Sasquatch, 7 foot tall simian, don't shoot it.
Make it a peanut butter sandwich.
I know.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure I would make a sandwich for something that's essentially 8 foot tall, covered in muscle, and could just break me like a twig. I mean, at the same time, yeah, I don't want Bigfoot to be shot, but it's kind of I guess the science guy in me knows that really the only way to truly prove it is to is to bring it in, and that leads to the other fakers, the guys who are I shot Bigfoot, and instead of actually the true mark of of this is going to be garbage is rather than actually take it to scientists, I'm going to charge people admission to see it. Okay, yeah,
we saw how that worked for King Kong.
Yeah. I was going to say there's a reason why sideshows went away. So
Now, Chris
ahead,
is saying Jersey Devil. So
Mhm.
have you hunted him yet?
So I do have one book out there devoted to the Jersey Devil called Devil Hunters, and it's my take on what I would consider kind of a quote unquote realistic take on it. But the thing is, the Jersey Devil, I gotta be honest, it strikes me as a crank, because one thing about Bigfoot, one thing about a lot of sea monsters is there's usually continuity between sightings. You see Bigfoot, every story you hear, 8 foot tall, covered in hair. Sometimes the hair is different colors, whatever. But yeah, Jersey Devil is like every sighting. It's like, okay, it's a kangaroo. It's got wings. It's got horse hooves. It's got claw. It's like, okay, if something looks different every time you see it, I'm thinking there's a good chance that that's not real.
Or maybe hitting the moonshine before they go out hunting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say anything bad about the people who live in southern New Jersey, but I gotta think that with some of these sightings, people are waking up and the first thing they're having instead of a bowl of Wheaties is like a cup of wood alcohol or something.
Some shine. No, I mean, we do have the cases though where there is the single instance and it's very well documented and consistent. I just don't know how it can have legs. And what I'm saying is I'm looking at you, Mothman, because I mean, it was what, 66, 67 sporadic sightings, pretty consistent, and then nothing. And it just continues to this day. Something like the Dover Demon as well.
Yeah.
One-time sighting, and so much of an industry has built up around it.
Yeah, the one-time sighting ones are difficult, especially when it's like one-time sighting. Oh, some teenagers reported it, or so. Yeah, those are type like one of my favorite podcasts is called Kryptonite, and one thing I like about them is they do those more esoteric ones, like those, instead of like doing Bigfoot or Loch Ness Monster, they they latch on to those like one-time only sightings that like pretty much have no corroborating evidence, but are still cool stories.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. If you can keep up the mystery and the story and add on to the legend, but you're kind of getting to legend tripping at that point. But who said that's not fun? I'm totally on the side.
That's what I prefer.
Yeah, I got to tell you, this is the one thing why I kind of moved out of ghost hunting is they're so deathly serious.
Right.
I'm like, does it pay the mortgage? Okay, get over it. Have some fun.
I mean, and also sometimes you just got to acknowledge that, like I had this one ghost sighting, and it was great. When I was down at Wyvacon in Wytheville, Virginia, I had a ghost sighting one night, and it was the coolest thing. But at the same time, I do have to acknowledge that, okay, it was at night. I was tired. I saw it pretty clearly, or at least I think I did. But is it possible I screwed it up? Yeah, of course it's possible. But at the same time, it makes a cool story.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a pair of bodiless legs that ended at the knee essentially walk in front of my truck as I was driving back to the hotel. I followed them across the road. They went from left to right. And I'm just watching these things in the headlights of my truck. So, like I said, clear view. I'm like, holy crap, what the hell? They crossed the road, disappeared into the grass. I turned my head and I said to myself, wouldn't it be funny if you were right next to a cemetery? And I turned my head. I'm right next to a cemetery.
Coming or going? Were they coming and going?
They were going back to it.
Okay, it was a late night. Had a busy night of haunting, scaring. They just want to stop by the White Castle, get some sliders, and go back home to their tomb.
Yeah, Chris Chrisman's in the chat room. He said hello, and he says, when legend becomes fact, print the legend.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, once things become fact, they become far less interesting. Legends are cool, because they're larger than life.
Mm-hmm.
So like some of the Bigfoot stories out there, like the whole Ape Canyon thing and stuff, they're just super cool to listen to, even though they've just been embellished to high heaven over the years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was one night. Yeah. One night in what, like the 1920s or something like that? Maybe it was the 30s, somewhere back in the day. Yeah.
And it probably was like, it's okay. One night, okay, it could have been squirrels like dropping rocks on the top of their like cabin and stuff. And when they got out, they're like, ape men.
I saw those apes running away. Oh, you mean the teenagers that were throwing the rocks? Okay, brother. I'm more interested in bat squatch out of that neck of the woods. So since I live up here, I'm not far from Ape Canyon, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's I'm in Bigfoot territory. We got other monsters.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'd love to say that if I were closer to Bigfoot territory, I'd be out in the woods all the time, but I would not.
I hear that.
Mm-hmm. I'm always curious because you talked about like flesh-eating, human smashing Bigfoot, but
with rabies.
See, that's what I was going to get at. Like,
oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm just like, we talk about all these monsters, but do they get all the other bugs that other critters get? Like, we have the rabies. Can a Sasquatch become a vampire? I mean,
it might now, right, Rick?
Yeah. That would just be the most terrifying thing on the planet. I mean, part of the thing behind Bigfoot hunters and the Bigfoot with rabies was that I always thought Cujo was a cool story, but it's also one of those stories like. And I mean, I love Stephen King, don't get me wrong, but Cujo is one of those stories that you read that a very specific set of things have to happen in order for it to be effective, in order for it to work. Like pretty much everybody in that story has to have the absolute worst luck on the planet.
Yes.
And I mean, like I was the thing with Bigfoot hunters, I was like, all right, let's actually put like, a group out there who's competent at hunting these things, but these things are just completely out of their minds, crazed with disease. Which like was just half the fun for me. Trying to put myself in the shoes of every character there, of being like, okay, what would I do to survive? Where would I be? It was a crazy book to write.
It's gonna be fun. So in the comments, we've got Michael Leffel. I'm sorry if I've mispronounced your name. He's got Rick's next book, Turd the Vampire. Can you take that might be in the works. Oh. Well, I mean, you got mashups. You've got a witch werewolf hybrid.
That's my hybrid if I'm in series. Yeah, that was kind of a fun thing. I'm doing a little bit of hybridization in the Bill books. I won't spoil it. Do have a little bit going on there. Making a vampire Sasquatch. Who's to say?
I mean, they are hominids.
Yeah. I mean, meet this like this. It's like, okay, not only is an 8-foot ape, but it's like, but it's utterly invulnerable. It drinks blood. Oh, and it turns into a werewolf under the full moon. It's like, really?
Oh, it could be funny if, we hear from the vampires, they bite into a Bigfoot and they're like, tastes like fruit punch.
I actually do have a scene where one of the vampires does bite into a Bigfoot, and he does comment that it does not taste good. He's like this thing like has sewage for blood.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to go look that one up. Oh, question from Chris Chrisman. He is saying, make sure you ask Rick about his Shingles movie during the show.
Yes, Shingles the movie, which is currently in final editing, I believe, should be coming out early 2023.
Oh.
Directed by Steve Rosinski, who did the Carousel movies.
I gotta look that up. Just I drop links left and right. Keep talking.
That's Jake's thing. He's
thing.
number
I'm
one
the
nerd here. So
yeah.
So yeah, this was kind of a crowdfunded movie that me and the guys who are part of the Authors and Dragons podcast put together. We hired Steve to direct it, and it's kind of a creep show type mashup from this series Shingles that we kind of co-write. So one of my stories is in it. I think there's like 5 stories total in it. My particular one is The Legend of Jimmy Headshot, which was I think it's the lone zombie story I've written, and I made the like protagonist this jackass sociopathic like gamer teen. Like where everybody else is panicking with the zombie apocalypse, he's just like, I've been waiting for this my entire life.
Just wait. I found there's 2 carousels, so I have to drop links to the trailers for people. One moment, please.
Carousel 1 and Carousel the 2nd.
Yeah, killer unicorn horror movie for the first one. Now that sounds fun.
Oh, it is. Well, here's the thing. So we do a feature on Authors and Dragons where, like, similar to kind of riff tracks where we'll watch a movie and we'll comment on it. And we had grabbed Carousel because we figured, okay, low budget horror movie, we're going to just have fun tearing it to shreds. And instead, we just enjoyed the crap out of it so much. That's how we started up a dialogue with the director. We like reached out to him. We're like, hey, you want to be on our podcast? Because we really enjoyed this movie. It is a very similar sense of humor to ours, and yeah, it was one of those things where, again, we thought we were going to just mock it because low budget movies, let's be honest, are kind of mockable. But instead, we were pretty much silent through the entire thing because we were just having so much fun watching it. So yeah, definitely check out his stuff.
Oh, definitely.
Yep, I dropped the trailers, and you can watch it on Prime Video, people.
Nice.
Cool.
And yeah, I'm not sure where Shingles the movie will be at. We're gonna be looking at getting into streaming places, probably like Tubi. I think we'd want to get it on maybe to Prime Video as well, but we're not quite there yet.
Oh, there's a trailer for it. The trailer just came out in November, actually.
Yep.
One moment, dropping.
Oh, I figured you'd play it.
Oh, I can. One moment, folks.
You want to watch it?
One sec. All I got to do, just wait. I'm just queuing, folks. I'm queuing here. Okay. You can see the briefcase.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
Pretty sure that's Steve's cat. So the idea behind this is basically the idea behind the Shingles series basically was what it like a lot of us grew up like reading Goosebumps.
I got the reference. Yeah.
and we were like, well, what if what if there were Goosebumps stories for adults? And I was like, and what if those adults were just terrible people?
And there you have it. Shingles.
And totally, I got the R.L. Stine references, especially with the dummy for sure, and the gnome. I'll drop the link to the trailer again for everyone if you want to enjoy it on your own.
So yeah, that should be coming out in early 2023. I'm super excited for that. I mean, just seeing something I wrote, come to life on the big screen, or the medium-sized screen, depending on people's TVs. Yeah, it's just super exciting, and we hope people get a good laugh out of it.
I'd watch the heck out of Bill the Vampire. So,
we'll see what happens there. Right,
mhm.
Bill the Vampire is currently under contract for option. So it's being shopped. It's being shopped around right now. I mean, the thing with options is probably
Awesome.
better than. Well, good chance nothing will come of it, but it's kind of one of those like buying a lottery ticket. You got to be in it to win it. So
yeah,
true. I was gonna say, when it comes to that, I was gonna ask if you've been approached for TV series, because this is, to me, I read this and it's kind of like
it's been hit or miss with stuff, because
okay.
I was approached in the past years by by some small directors, small producers, and it was always kind of a little scummy. And I'm not a lawyer, but in my previous career, my previous day jobs, I spent a lot of time doing legal reviews of contracts. So like in some of these, I would look and be like, this is not right. Then I would get like a second legal opinion, and usually it would be like, yeah, you're right, it's not cool.
I see. That was good. But from a if I could talk intellectual property, right? You as the author of the book, we know movies are different entities than the books. Yes. But would you say review the screenplay? Would you write a screenplay? Would you say you have to keep this part's true to the character, or?
So I would say that a lot depends on who's producing the movie, how much they want me to be a part of it. I'm not getting if my friend John Hartness has often said that he's more than happy for a director to basically pay him to go away. And I mean, to a degree, there's something to be said that. I mean, if it's being made and they don't want my interference, I'll step away. If they want my input, I'm more than happy to give it. I'm really in no position to make demands, because I'm not really a movie guy. I'm not going to do the arrogant thing of well, I know better than you. If they do ask my opinion, I definitely do have opinions on certain things I want to see. But ultimately, it really comes down to it's geek humor, and it's R-rated geek humor. Bill's not going to do well as as an NBC series or something.
Yeah. On this subject, from Heather Mudgett, I hope I pronounced that correctly. She's asking, what's your dream cast for Bill?
Bill's been on for a while, so my dream cast has changed. It used to be my original dream cast was basically the cast of Superbad. They would have been perfect as as Bill, his roommate Sally, all of that stuff. These days, honestly, one of those, I try not to torture myself with that, because that winds up becoming heartache if you're oh, these people would be perfect for it, and I don't know, then it just kind of eats at you. So I don't really have a current dream cast other than to say, I would I would just hope that it falls into the hands of a competent director who's passionate to make a good horror comedy movie or series.
So on that tip, current looking at it, if I could talk, geez, I'm not even drinking.
Are you okay? Is everything all right?
Yeah. I'm trying to. It's just tonight. Let me tell you, it happens sometimes. But with the current slate, there are some horror comedies or some lightish horror series. Which ones do you like on the streamers? These are not endorsements of these shows, people. However, if the platforms would like to pay us to pitch there, it's not a problem. Send it to cashmoneydollars@gottapaythemortgage.com.
Yeah, if they refuse, just beep all this out.
Yeah.
I mean, what we do in Shadows, I think is super cute and fun. As far as horror comedy, current, I mean, I like a lot of the stuff that Netflix does, where it's not really horror comedy, but it's usually kind of like snarky horror.
Mhm.
Like some of the Korean stuff they're like, they're importing.
Those are great.
I guess so. One thing, probably my favorite horror comedy of all time is Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah.
And
Mhm.
like one of the things I like about that is, and this is the way I like my horror comedy, is I don't like slapstick necessarily. What I like is kind of character-driven humor, and Ghostbusters works because it's if you take that scenario and you put like a serious cast, it's a horror movie, you know.
Mhm.
Instead, you have this cast of like of jackasses and like just making like snarky comments, and that's where the humor lies, and that's like the type of horror comedy I like. I don't necessarily like things to just get goofy and like and silly. I kind of like the idea of horrific things are happening, but it's being dealt with by people who just have trouble taking it seriously.
Mhm.
That's the only way I can handle a zombie apocalypse. So like Shaun of the Dead, I
Yeah.
like. And though it's slapstick gore, I did like Dead Alive, Peter Jackson, New Zealand.
Dead Alive is great.
But that's pretty gore humor right
yeah.
there. I would say that's getting slapstick, but
I don't know if it's I mean, but it's definitely gore humor.
Mhm.
But I mean, I will say I am a fan of things that go over the top, and he goes way over the
Yeah.
top in that.
Mhm.
Like one of my favorite import movies is The Story of Ricky, which is this over the top kung fu movie where like the first fight that happens, this guy takes a wood lathe and just like rams it against his other guy's face and just carves like a chunk out of his like.
No.
But it's like it's gory, it's bloody, but at no point does it have the budget to actually pull off and make it realistic, which makes it so much fun. It has my all-time favorite death scene in it. Somebody's girlfriend, she falls off this building, and they film it with just this stiff mannequin that just falls off the building with her screams overdubbed, and it in no way looks realistic. And I've seen people watch that movie and they're like, I can't handle it. It's too like bloody and violent. And I'm like, yeah, but it looks so freaking fake. How can you take it seriously?
Right.
just before I drop the trailer, is it from about 91? Korean or Chinese or
I think Japanese.
okay.
But yeah, it's Ricky-O, The Story of Ricky.
Okay, this is it. Okay, I'm dropping the trailer, people.
Okie dokie.
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorites, and it's just so over the top crazy. I don't like to see real people, like people, animals, and like get hurt. But I am all for the gore special effects. Like like a Dead Alive, just run people over with like a lawnmower and just have limbs and stuff flying. I will watch that stuff for hours.
Yeah, I mean, I like it when the critters are also part of the animals. So there was a New Zealand zombie. It's not even a zombie. The one Black Sheep or something like that, where the sheep start eating the people. That's amazing. That's one of my favorite films too. It's a little gonzo too. I like it. I like it when the critters get the humans. So of course, I should be reading more of your books.
I will say I do not shy away from the violence. I've been at at conventions, and I've had people come up to me and be like, "Oh, my 10-year-old son loves Bigfoot. Is Bigfoot Hunters appropriate?" No.
Not remotely.
Yeah, not even close.
Yeah. So when it comes to writing your books, do you have a specific process you use? How do you brainstorm? How do you come up with the crazy, Rick?
Yeah, I mean, like I multi-genre, and I switch off in the way I do things. Like my Bill series is mostly pantsed, which means basically you're right by the seat of your pants. Like I usually know the end point that I'm aiming for, but I'm just kind of making it up as I go, so it's a little more spontaneous that way. Versus like Bigfoot Hunters and like the horror stuff I do, I need to plot that out because I want to make sure that when I'm doing serious horror, I want to make sure I'm not doing anything like the Friday the 13th, like Jason teleports from one place to the other. I don't want to pull people out of the story. You can get away with that in a movie, because people are kind of in the moment and like they only think about it after the fact. It's kind of like Jurassic World. Jurassic World is fun to watch, But when you think about it afterwards, it's like, wait a second. Books, though, you kind of think about as you're doing it, so you can't cheat like that. So I know, like Bigfoot Hunters, when I wrote that, I had an outline, but I also essentially had I had this crude map of the town that it takes place in, and I basically had these pins of like the characters and the monsters. So at any given time, any given chapter, I knew where everybody was, so that if somebody had to be from point A to point B, it was feasible that they could make it from point A to point B in that time.
That makes sense. That's a good. Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be accused of cheating, of like, oh wait, this character was like here and then they were across town 10 minutes later. Now I that's sloppy writing, and I don't want to be accused of that. Unless it's a character who can teleport, in which case that's all bets are off.
But you have to remember to reveal that they have that special mutant power.
There may or may not be witches that may or may not have these abilities, right?
You always want to hint at powers. You don't want to just have a MacGuffin at the end where somebody just pulls a power they've never even hinted at. I hate that. That is such lazy ass storytelling. Where you could fix that with just a little bit of foreshadowing, along the lines of like, I have this hidden power inside of me. I don't know how to how to use it. Like just a mention or so, and you could get away with stuff like that. But yeah, I really cannot stand where it's like, okay, at the very end, the good guy's losing. He's about to get beaten, and suddenly he pulls this power we've never seen before out of his hat. Yeah, that annoys the crap out of me. Yeah, and I tried never to do that in my stories.
Yeah, so this is the one thing I always like about my comic books when you start with issue 1, and it's a series, so you can continue adding to the story. But like all the superheroes, like especially from the 80s on, take like the New Mutants, and like they always build into the characters' powers over time, and eventually everyone ends up godlike, right? But at least the first time you can see it bubbling under the surface. The show I thought did this very well was Wednesday. I don't know if you watched it.
Yes.
Okay. She had her inciting incident, which her powers kind of clicked on. But for a lot of the other characters, including like Enid, it built over the season.
And that makes perfect sense. Where like now it's like, okay, now it's clicked. Now you have your Super Saiyan 2 moment where like, where everything comes together and you do your power up. And yeah, that's not a cheat. So yeah, I'm a fan of telling a story like that, where that. And I've had people come back to me and be like, wait, this happened to this end. This wasn't mentioned before. And I'd be like, no, go back and reread it, because it is there.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing too, when you're reading it, like you got to pay, depending on how long and complicated the novel is and everything, you really got to pay attention to every sentence as you're going, because I'm notorious for having to go and flip back, because there might have been some skimming. I might have been, had too many screens in front of me. But.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of dropping story hooks for myself, which is that, like, as the story is being told, people will add like, other like little bits of the lore to it, but they don't really go into detail, and things later that I can build off of and be like, okay, and make it look like I know what I'm doing. But yeah, I like throwing little things like that in there, because they give me things to add later in, like, in either a sequel or an ongoing series or so.
Totally. So speaking of what would we call the universe? Is this the Bill? I know you have got the Bent universe, and Crypto Hunter's part of it, and then you've got the Bill.
Yeah, the Tome of Bill universe is. So I guess there's 4 series that are part of that. There's the original Tome of Bill, which starts with Bill the Vampire. There's a sequel series that takes place five years after the end of the final book in that one, called Bill of the Dead, which is currently ongoing. I have a spin-off series from that, from Tome of Bill, that I write with Ari Carr, called False Icons. And then there's kind of a spin-off from Bill of the Dead, which is called Bill of the Dead Adventures. It's basically a bunch of novellas told from the, like, the viewpoints of other characters. Lets me hop into other people's heads. Just both fun and scary at times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like the first person point of view that you use to, stream of consciousness I can't talk again. Stream of consciousness type stuff. But is that your favorite style of writing from first person POV, or do you like to do more of an omniscient?
I would say the two styles I mostly write in are first person point of view and third person limited.
Okay.
And first person, I think I have the most fun in, and it usually gets me in the most trouble, because I'm a student of psychology. I was originally going for a psychology master's until my school screwed up and I wound up with a different master's. Long story. But one thing that that I always try to do when I'm doing first person is you're in somebody's head, so you're kind of seeing their uncensored thoughts, and those uncensored thoughts aren't always nice.
Mm-hmm.
And people call me out on that. Like, why is this person such a scumbag? I'm like, well, I think pretty much anybody in a given time can have just unsavory thoughts. But since we don't have thought police, you don't see that stuff going on. It's really, you just go by how they act. I usually throw the example out there. It's like, because somebody was like, well, Bill was having salacious thoughts about a woman. Does that make him some horrible person? And I was like, well, he's a hetero guy. I was like, look at it from this perspective. Have you ever been driving, been cut off, and immediately been like, man, I would so love to see a bus ram into the side of you or something?
Yeah.
We have these fleeting thoughts and stuff. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make us murderers because we don't act on it or so, but we have them. And when I tell people stories in first person, you're seeing that those unfiltered thoughts, which sometimes can turn people off because people are like, well, I only want I don't want morally gray heroes or so. And I'm like, I think inside we're all kind of morally gray to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just think of the horror of a being John Malkovich. If somebody could actually ride inside your noggin for just even a day and just be privy to every one of your thoughts, that would just the thought just makes me cringe. And yet I write these characters.
But they're so true to form. I have really enjoyed the series because of it.
I appreciate it. Well, that's the thing. I try to make by doing that, I think they feel more realistic than somebody who's always making the right choice.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
People don't always make the right choice. There's one scene in one of the books where the bad guy basically offers Bill a bribe, and he almost takes it because he's like, oh wait, so I could take this money, I could walk away, I could live, and I could be rich, and nobody needs to know.
Right.
And he only changes his mind because the bad guy's like, well, yeah, but I'm going to kill your friends or so. But yeah, I kind of like those choices where the hero's like, if I just walked away, this would be fine. I'd live.
I'd be done. Yeah. and then that moment hits.
But yeah, I like writing that bit of grayness into these characters.
Yes. Now, Zoe is asking what's next for Bill.
All right. So what's next for Bill? Excuse me. So Bill of the Dead 5, Bite Force. That'll be coming probably in 2023. I haven't started it yet, so because I've had a bit of a writer's block the last couple months, and I'm just now kind of coming out of it. So I'm definitely behind on my schedule, but yes, there will be more Bill coming along. I need to finish the Hybrid of High Moon, the Bent series. Book 5 will be the final book in that series, and after that, I do have a new horror comedy I want to write, which I'm starting to plot. Basically more to do with demons. Just to give a little sneak preview.
All right.
But I think that could be a fun thing to dive into.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, this Warburton is saying, it's always fine until you act. To me, it's one of the worst parts of Roman Catholicism, as they often tell worshippers that even if it's in your heart, it's still a sin. Well, screw that, and sometimes some people need killing. period. So
You said it. I didn't.
I did.
I second that. I second that.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's just a crappy way. Because I mean, and the truth, I think the truth of the matter is, if that is true, that okay, you're guilty of these sins, even if you think them, then I don't think there's too many good people on the planet if that's the case.
Right.
You know.
It's a good way to control the masses. So
yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is why, like, you know, I often kind of like, you know, we've had this debate on Authors of Dragons a few times about, I mean, let's be honest, there's some humor out there we probably shouldn't be laughing at, but we do. And it's like, okay, yeah, that kind of, and some people were like, well, yeah, if you laugh at humor, that's as bad as like doing the act itself or so. And I tend to disagree. Yeah, I think it's like, okay, actions speak louder than words, and sometimes you can laugh at something while still acknowledge that, yeah, this is pretty terrible.
And you don't always laugh because it's funny. You laugh because of the irony or the the ridiculousness of the situation.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. Sometimes you do laugh because somebody makes a good joke on about a bad situation. But again, it's
I'm guilty of that.
Oh, yeah.
Relieve the tension with a really bad joke.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I am a firm believer. Like I am always that guy. Like I've done several comedy panels at fan conventions, and I am always wind up being that guy when they ask the question, is there anything off limits when it comes to making a joke? And of course people will be like, well, I won't do this, and I'll be like, not really, because if you think about it, we have everyday jokes that kind of, if you distill them to their root, are about really horrific things.
Yes.
I mean, how many of us have made like windowless van with with candy jokes or so? And I mean, if you distill that down to what it's about, that's not cool. But again, I think it comes down to like literally anything you could make, you know, a joke about if you take it to, especially if you take it to a ridiculous extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of my stories, one thing you always hear: don't kill the dog. Don't kill the dog. I have a joke. Like in one of the Bill books where, yeah, a dog gets killed and it's played for laughs, and it's just done so ridiculously. And the editor of that book, it was made for an anthology, was like, you need to take this out. And I was like, I'm not taking this out. He's like, it makes your character look like an asshole. I'm like, he's supposed to look like one. That's why this is staying in. So I think now there are personally certain places I'm not going to go in stories. And that's fine. I think we all have to have our own things, but yeah, usually if somebody gives me that thing, it's like, is there anything that like you can't make a joke about? It's really hard for me to, you know, and as a retailer, I wound up looking like the horrible person on these panels, because I'm like, well, technically,
it's all fair game. It's
Yeah.
all fair game.
Yeah.
being
It's
a
all
comedy
fiction.
writer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that's also the thing is, you know, think of all the horrible people out there doing horrible things all the time. All the things I've written in my books, nobody actually gets hurt.
True. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of like, I'm a big fan of Halloween. Love Halloween. My wife and I, we used to do like a haunted house in our basement for the neighborhood kids and stuff. And I would never hold back on that. Like, it wouldn't be a friendly haunted house. It would be a terrifying haunted house for like the neighborhood kids. They'd come out crying and stuff. And I'd have parents like, you know, get in my face, like, you gave my son nightmares. And they'd be like, yeah, but
You let him in.
well, no, it wasn't even that. It was like two things. One, I guarantee your kid's going to be probably first in line next year, which almost always wound up being true. And two, they were never in any danger. It's
Right,
the illusion of them thinking they were scared. It's a
Mhm.
safe scare. It's the endorphin rush. Yes, it freaks you out, but you were never in any danger. And that's kind of like, you know, what I look at like with fiction is that, you know, some people do have trouble separating like the fact from fiction. If there's one thing my parents did right, which I'll be honest, they didn't do a whole hell of a lot right, but if there's one thing they did right is they instilled upon me that like that whole suspension of disbelief. that this is not real. And I mean, in that regards, very little reading bothers me because I can separate that. That's why I can watch like a gory film like Ricky O and not be bothered, because it's like, okay, this is clearly fake. No animals were harmed in the making of this movie. No animals were harmed in the making of this book.
Yeah. Yeah. Now it does. I mean, so what do you think about a series like Dahmer, which had gore, and that was based in reality? And I mean, I'm sure that some of it was dramatized.
Oh yeah. So things that are like, I tend not to watch dramas that are 100% like, taken out of real life, because real life is depressing as it is. I like my entertainment to be entertaining, or my entertainment to be entertaining. And I don't mind though things that like where you could tell it's loosely based off of real events, because that means that they took somebody's idea and they just fictionalized the crap out of it. Those don't bother me, because you can actually have some fun movies that way. Like I've watched movies where it starts off saying based on true events, and it's like, oh God, I'm gonna hate this. And then it's like, okay, it so clearly goes off in left field, where it's like, okay, this has nothing to do with reality. But yeah, it's like something like Dahmer, I'm not really too interested in, just because like the gore wouldn't bother me, but I don't know, the real life aspect of it is like, if I want to learn about that, I'll just go read Wikipedia.
Yeah. And the other side of that is I kind of like, at least have the first generation of people related, have them die off first before you rehash killing all of their relatives.
Yeah.
But
there is something skeevy about that, of like, okay, you're capitalizing off of real actual human suffering here.
Yeah, totally. So I got a question, Rick. Who are you reading right now?
So I am Kyoko M she's the author, and I'm reading I believe it's called Of Cinder and Bone. And and I've been reading it for a while, because I just haven't had like, with the stuff going on with my dog and and stuff, I just haven't been in a mindset to read, which sucks, because I really am enjoying the story. I think the sales pitch was something like Jurassic Park meets Reign of Dragons. And I was like, why would I? How could I not buy a book like that? So I'm hoping to finish that soon, because I really am enjoying it. It's just one of those cases where I don't know. When I get in bed at night, I'm like tired. I'm like, I just want to play like a game of Marvel Snap and go to sleep. I just haven't been I've been a little burnt out with that.
Yeah, I totally get it. Speaking of that, Reign of Fire is one of the movies I thought I would hate, and I really liked it. And I really, really liked it. I was surprised.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool idea.
It is. The FX was, but it wasn't bad at all. Say Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah, that's a fun movie.
Oh yeah.
All the Evil Dead movies. Yeah.
Like Evil Dead, Evil Dead can definitely fall into slapstick. But one of the things I love about the Evil Dead movies, and this is kind of like, it's also a bit of a inspiration for my Bill series, is that Ash is an unlikable anti-hero. And he's one of those types where every time he takes a beating, he kind of deserves it. And I kind of like that. Like some people are like, well, you always do horrible things to Bill. I'm like, yeah, but Bill usually deserves them. He usually walks face first into like those punches that he's taking. And that's part of the humor there, is like, okay, you have this person who, honestly, if he would just learn to shut up, most of the bad things that happen to him probably wouldn't happen.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's something to be said about okay, you bring it upon yourself.
And it's true sometimes.
I mean, I gotta tell you, with the Evil Dead movies, that's the one where I'm like, they did the remake, what, 5, 6, 7. I'm like, why'd you have to make it so serious?
Yeah.
Don't ruin the core.
Yeah, that's one thing about remakes that like certain remakes get it. Like John Carpenter's The Thing took the original Thing from another world and just dialed it up to like 12 there. That's cool. But what's annoying is when you have these remakes that obviously do not understand the original, like the remake of RoboCop. Like the original RoboCop is a lot of satire, and the remake is kind of played semi-serious, and it does not even remotely work at all.
Yeah. The other one, I think, Stephen King has the worst time with a lot of his movie remakes. And I think if there's two they need to put to bed. No more Carries, please. And no more fire starters. It's just no one has done them well since. But I will say in that regard, his and this is one of my favorite things he's done. I loved Storm of the Century from the mid-90s. If you remember that, with Linoge, the demon that came to, it's always Maine, right? The town was kind of like a Roanoke situation. I freaking loved that, by the way. I know that's outside his normal purview of writing, but I like it when authors take a risk like that.
I mean, like I love Stephen King's stuff, especially his earlier stuff, because I mean, he's written one of only two novels, or like one of only two novels I've read that like I've considered actually frightening. Like I've read a lot of horror novels. It's entertaining me. I enjoy the crap out of it. It very seldom scares me, but I found scary, especially the first time I read it, because that's just a creepy ass book. And the other book I read that scared me was The Relic by Douglas Preston and Lincoln Childs, and because both of them kind of play on that whole concept of you're by yourself and you're going to a place that you shouldn't, and there's really no escape because there's something waiting for you there.
Yeah, when it comes to scare, I could tell you like one of the most influential, if I could talk, influential books on me was Cycle of the Werewolf, when Stephen King teamed up with Bernie Wrightson.
My favorite.
Yeah, that was like one thing that really got me to writing, though I pivoted to Clive Barker right after that. Okay. And then I went to junk for like John Saul. He writes good junk. I gotta say, I like it.
I've read a few Clive Barker's books. Read a lot of Kuntz's stuff.
Oh yeah, Dean Koontz, yeah.
Good storyteller, but his typically his stuff kind of comes across as Stephen King light, at least as far as the horror and the gore goes. His endings do tend to be a little bit better.
I had to stop reading Stephen King. Back in the 90s, I was an apprentice pipe fitter, and I was on equipment watch one, and it's the graveyard shift, and I have to look down into this manhole and check to make sure that all of it's working. And it was dark, just dark and really late. My mind's starting to imagine, and I'm reading it.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm waiting for something to grab me and pull me down into this never-ending thing.
Oh, I'm going to tell you, the worst actual fears I have ever had have been in my basement due to my damn cats, because I have had a few of them do the spring-loaded cat thing at me. Like I'll go downstairs, I'll after watching a horror movie, just locking up and be like, okay, now suddenly the basement's like a terrifying thing. I'll walk, and like I've had a couple times where I'll walk over to the washer and one of the cats will be up on a shelf and just jump down, and it's like my soul just leaves my body. So yes, the spring-loaded cat is real.
So then, Rick, question: of all the monsters you've written about, which one's your favorite?
I really do come back to Bigfoot. I am such a huge Bigfoot guy. I do enjoy werewolves as well. I mean, I don't think I read about monsters I don't like. like I'm starting to like move slowly into like some kaiju stuff, and I'm a huge Godzilla fan, and so that's like that's just fun as crap.
Oh yeah.
To just put in something that's just like Kraken Hunters in a way is kind of my first kaiju story, if you will. But I've been like working it into some other stuff, and yeah, it's just fun to like kind of put in something that's just so massive where it's like, okay, the main characters are just like, how the hell are we gonna deal with this? And I mean that's fun. Yeah, I don't think I like if there was something I wasn't enjoying writing, I wouldn't write it.
Okay, that's a good answer, I gotta say. Yeah,
I mean, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say one of my beliefs is that I try to enjoy what I write because I think that enjoyment comes across to the reader. It's the same way you can like when you watch a movie, you can kind of tell if an actor had a good time in the role because there's just that extra spark going on. I think it's the same with books. Like you can tell, like something that was just kind of like something that was just churned out versus something where the author really got into it. I think you can tell that difference.
For sure. Yeah. I'm not a zombie fan, to be honest. Anytime it comes to zombies, I'm like, meh.
They're kind of icky.
Chomp, chomp.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, zombies have been kind of done to death, and there's a formula for that, and I'm not a big fan of the formula, which is always like and in fact, in the Legend of Jimmy Headshot, which is that Shingles book I was telling you about, I kind of mocked the formula because like the kids, the main character is a big fan of zombie movies, and he's going through to going, well, the zombie apocalypse started. We're never going to find out what caused it. We're never going to do this. And of course, during the course of the story, he figures he's like, well, damn, I figured out what caused it.
Oh yeah. And the other thing for me is all the virus movies that kill everyone, they get sick. I mean, I know we just went through COVID, so that was ramped up and everything, but I guess I like a more visceral monster.
Yeah, it's like, I typically don't write people as monsters because once again, that's too close to real life and can be a little depressing. I like monsters. Sometimes they're like, sometimes they're not really necessarily monsters, that they're just misunderstood. But a lot of times, yes, they are monsters, and they just want to rip your arms off because they can.
Hey, why not?
And the reason I like that is simply because I write to entertain. I'm not there to tell you. I'm not there to teach you a lesson. I'm not there to give some like moral, like thing. I write to entertain. And when you read one of my books, I want you to be teleported away to another world for a couple hours and just have a good time.
Yeah, I think we need more of that, more fun in our lives, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, entertainment should be entertaining.
Yeah, transport me to a different world.
Yeah, when I turn on a movie, one of the reasons I don't watch dramas is because I don't want to get depressed. Right. My wife will be like, "Oh, let's watch this drama," and I'll be like, "Does anybody get kung fu to death? Because if not, probably not." I'm just kidding. We actually the only thing I think we watch together is like anime.
Well, I mean, cool.
And
really good.
And even there, like I like the completely off the wall animes. I know there's like dramatic animes. They're like they're kind of like a slice of life. I'm not a big fan of that. I like the ones that go like just a little batshit. I've been like watching Chainsaw Man right now, which is like which is just crazy as all hell. And I mean, I like stories like that. Like one of the animes my wife liked was Forest of Piano, which is basically just these musicians and stuff. It was really dramatic, and it really annoyed her because this one I was watching was called Kengan and Ashura, which is basically these over muscled dudes just beating the crap out of each other. And I was like, yeah, this is just like Forest of Piano, but instead of pianos, they're using their fists. So yeah, she didn't like that.
Just wait, I'm dropping a snippet of This is Chainsaw Man versus Katana.
Man. Yeah, Chainsaw Man is great. It is It's one of those ones where like I sat down in the first episode, I was like, I can watch this.
I think the last anime one, oh, hot damn. He really is a chainsaw man.
Yeah.
I mean, the last animes I really watched were like Vampire Hunter D. And, that was kind of the rage in the late 80s and early 90s. You had Akira.
Yeah. I was like the Dragon Ball various series.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole idea of just wasting an entire episode just screaming and powering up is just ridiculous, but it's fun.
That's it exactly. It's just fun.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that's part of why I write Bill is I like a little bit. Once again, I don't necessarily like slapstick, but I like a little bit of ridiculousness in my entertainment. And I think almost everything I write has a touch of that. Even the serious stuff. Like there's moments where there's just that levity of like, almost like turning to the camera and winking.
Right.
We're all in on the joke here.
Yeah. Like one of my favorite things is to have one of my characters in like a book be like, it's like, yeah, and then this happened. Like this was some kind of cheap ass fantasy story.
Okay. Let's see if we got any. There's, what is this from Warburton? It's just wait.
Kill La Kill?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm of a certain age.
You never. Yeah, I started watching Kill La Kill, never got into it.
Okay.
I'll have to look that one up. Thanks for the tip, Warburton.
And Vampire Hunter D?
Yeah, that's classic.
That's
okay.
classic. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I just never personally got into that part, but reading was always my thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, they came over with the when I think they took the individual, graphic novel type thing. They combined the series from Japan, released them. I was in the army in Hawaii at the time, and so it was all over the place in Hawaii. So I remember picking them up, and I really loved them because I was used to my mutants. I'm an X-Men guy, and I just really loved them and everything.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's also part of the reason why I write the things. Most of the things I do is that I grew up reading comic books. I like the concept of urban fantasy because urban fantasy is like a cousin of horror, but the difference is, horror you have the the quote unquote the monsters and you have the victims, whereas in urban fantasy the victims fight back.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that idea of of people fighting back with what they have. That's one of my things. And if they wind up with even if they're the underdog, maybe they have some powers or so. Yeah,
they've got a fighting chance.
Yeah. It's like let's be honest, the Fantastic Four stood no chance against Galactus, but they beat him time and again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's because you play RPGs, and I have quite a collection. I'm not necessarily a straight ahead D&D guy, but I do like my modern horror role-playing games, and this is things like Hunter the Vigil or Hunter the Reckoning, got Wraith the Oblivion, all these other ones. And I just like, you have, as a common person, for one thing, you can play the monster in that series, the Chronicles of Darkness or World of Darkness, or whichever one of the universes that Onyx Path has going on, or White Wolf. And I always like the aspect that you could be the monster. I gotta tell you, I still enjoy playing the human that hunts the monster. That's why I like Hunter, especially the Reckoning. That's told pew pew pew. Boom.
But that's the thing. Even even a normal person, if that's kind of like the gist of the Bigfoot Hunter series is they don't have superpowers, but they're trained to do what they do. So they're still not victims. They're fighting back. It's the difference between Jason chasing stupid teens versus Jason chasing kung fu masters.
Chuck Norris.
It's a whole different dynamic.
Yeah. And the other thing that I like is not everyone likes these, but I really like the Underworld movies. However, They don't do werewolves justice in that series. We all know werewolves can rip freaking heads off vampires. Let's be real. Like Herschel, what's his face in Georgia.
They do kind of they do kind of establish that lycans aren't werewolves.
Yeah.
You know, I think in the second movie, because there is a werewolf in the second movie, and they kind of establish that lycans are kind of a watered down offshoot of them.
Yeah. You're right.
Domesticated.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I miss the classic days of the Universal monsters where the Wolfman would take on Frankenstein. I mean, I got a thrill in 2003 when Jason took on Freddy. Like, my fanboy, even though the movie sucked, don't get me wrong. I love the smackdowns. And plus the other thing is like, really? You just put that much sleeping stuff in Jason and he's going to take a nap? But we need Freddy to come back, so I can.
Yeah. But no, yeah, I mean, mashups like that are great. This is why, like, every time they do like a DC versus Marvel, they're just printed money with that. Even if the story, even if it's the story winds up being, it's like, oh, Wolverine versus Logo, and Wolverine somehow inexplicably won off screen because there's no way he would actually win.
Yeah. But I mean, they explained that in one of the very first crossovers. I mean, like I think it was the early late 90s or something. So the Avengers made it to Earth 2 or 3 or Earth 1 or wherever, they have all the Earths, where the Justice League is. And the first thing the Avengers did was, whoa, we've powered up. So they already explained, why are DC heroes so omnipotent? It's just in their universe, they're godlike.
Which I always found to be a little ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, that's the bad thing about Superman. For one thing, he's too goody two shoes. And really, who's got kryptonite hanging around? I mean, you can't take this guy out. But here's my thing. If he's vulnerable to magic, Wonder Woman should be able to kick his ass every single day of the week because she's magic. Let's be real.
Shazam, too.
Yeah.
I mean, Yeah, I mean, Superman can be done well. And, like, some of the stories as of late that they have been really doing well. But I don't know. Like, I prefer a hero like a Spider-Man who's powerful, but there's limits.
Yeah. I like limits on my superheroes.
Yeah,
for sure. Just even though they have these powers, I like to relate to them.
Yeah.
So I gotta say, even though I love my X-Men, I was a huge X-Men fan. We all know they all had their limits. For one thing, Professor X got the telepathy. You can still shoot him in the head and kill him. Let's be real. Wolverine now, he's just become, he can get stripped to adamantium. As long as there's one atom of an organic cell, he'll reject. Like, really? Please.
And that's one thing I try to do with with my stories. I put like in the Bill series, he's a big comic book, nerd. He knows these things. So that's how he talks in things where he's like, it'd be really cool to be strong as the Hulk, but I'm more like Captain America, which is still kind of cool, but it's not like I could pick up a car and beat somebody with it.
And the other big thing, and we were talking about this before we came on the air, is continuity. I love a tight continuity. One of my favorite things from comic books was if I was reading something, they'd put the little editor's note in the little bottom, or one of the corners that said, "See this issue," so I could go back to it. Because, like I said, sometimes I'm skimming, I don't always remember it. I need to jump back.
I mean, one of the difficult things about writing a long series for me, anyway, is that I am a big fan of continuity. I don't like to break it. I have the established rules of the universe. If I'm going to break those rules, there's a reason I'm breaking those rules, and that's going to be explained. But other than that, it's like, the continuity is super important. That's why I have like beta readers and stuff, like, telling me, hey, this shouldn't happen or so, and I'm going to listen when that does. God, I remember one of the books I was reading. I think it was Half a Prayer. I had these two characters meet for the first time, and it was only when I was halfway through the book that I realized, wait, they went on a date together in book 2. They know each other, and I was like, okay, gotta go back and rewrite that entire section.
Oops. It's always nice to have a script supervisor.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, it's like, I don't. It's annoying as crap when, like, you're reading something like what used to bug me. Like, I thought Xena was an awesome show,
Mm-hmm.
But I remember that they did like, when the Callisto arc, when she was on, they had Callisto as an adult, and then like Xena at one point went back in time and like met like young Callisto, and the actress had different colored eyes, and that bugged the crap out of me. And I was watching it going, okay, I'm enjoying the story, but did nobody notice that one girl has green eyes and this girl has brown eyes, and this makes no fucking sense?
You did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, one show I thought had really good continuity, and the TV show was Buffy. Buffy was very good at it. I mean, that was like a comic book series, to be honest, too. I really liked that one, and I don't think they really did too much with retconning there, with anything in Buffy.
So.
And they did have the ties to Angel once he left, and they didn't meet that much. You would think, because they really weren't that far away. but
no, they were really good with continuity, like, and sometimes like sometimes something would come up and it'd be like, oh wait, that was like 7 seasons ago. And it's like, and I can really appreciate when shows do that, because you know what it says to me? It says that the writers care.
Yeah. Yeah. Supernatural, they had a little bit of retconning here and there over the years, 15 seasons, but that's another one that had really good continuity. And even though the final few seasons weren't exactly my favorite, at least they did fan service. And they brought back, they tried to close as many storylines as they could.
Whereas, like, I remember watching like the later series of seasons of Heroes, and it was like,
oh yeah,
whoever wrote this, did they actually watch the original season? Because I don't think they did.
Talk about a show that quickly went down hill. The other so I don't know if you saw the Netflix Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The people that did that movie did not watch any of the ones before that whatsoever. And that was just infuriating. The word thing again, infuriating to me.
It's kind of like that logic jump from like Highlander to Highlander 2, where it's like, huh? What?
What? Now, if there's a reimagining, okay, but to me, when I hear a reimagining, this is kind of like Batman Elseworlds. It's not supposed to be in the continuity. This is not canon.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with a reimagining as long as you're basically divorcing it from that original thing. Heck, I almost did a reimagining of one of my books last year, and it just wound up not happening. But I was playing with the idea where it was like, okay, let me just tell this story completely different, as if it was in a different world. Excuse me. But yeah, I'm perfectly cool with that, because sometimes you can do something like that, like the original Battlestar Galactica versus the remake, and we'll forget about the last couple episodes of the remake. But the first several seasons, it was like, okay, you took something that a lot of us knew and remembered, and you made it your own thing, and you did a damn good job of it. And that was I have a lot of respect for that, because now it's two separate things and you can enjoy them both.
Yeah, I totally enjoyed Battlestar Galactica 2003 miniseries, 2004 regular series. My problem with, and this is the thing, is they didn't give enough time for the finales or the finals, because everything was just so convenient. Really, you got, what was it, the Bob Dylan song or whatever the hell it is? Spoiler alert. I mean, this show only ended like 16 years ago. But I'm just like, really? It's kind of like the Wednesday finale for a more recent one. It's like, this came together a little too easily.
Yeah, that was the only episode of Wednesday that I was like, the finale was a little too, they really should have spent more time building it up.
Either the other thing is, it's streaming, so you don't have to fit it into 44 minutes. Like the finale with Buffy, for example, I'm like, wow, that was like a checklist, check.
Yeah, but Netflix always does that. They always they always add, like, I don't know, their seasons tend to be either too short or too long. They never seem to get it quite right, where it's like, okay, this is as much story as we need.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, one thing I like about the streamers though is because they're not wed to the number of episodes. I gotta say though, it's either going to be 6, 8, 10, or 12, right?
Yeah.
And Wednesday I think was 9, 8 or 9. I think they could have done a 10. I think they needed one
Mhm.
more or a double
Yeah.
long final.
Yeah,
because they rushed through that. That was
yeah.
that
A
was
little more
way-
Crackstone.
and then
Yeah.
introducing like a big bad, like at the very end there, where it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I don't have no idea who this person is, and I do not care.
Yes. Well, they foreshadowed it. They did.
They foreshadowed it, but they really should have done a better job.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
yeah.
if you're going to build up, spoiler alert, the big oogly-eyed monster as the big bad, then that's the big.
And
bad.
that's the big bad. Yeah.
And then tease who showed up in the finale, because that would be really great to see that go on for a season.
Yeah.
And we'll write letters to Tim Burton. I don't know. He didn't write it though. He just directed it. Oh, it was comic book guys that wrote it. Mark Miller and I forgot the other guy. They're comic book folks. They did Marvel's Ultimate Universe. If you remember that one.
I missed the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah.
Like two lines I liked. I liked Ultimate Universe, and I liked the 2099 line.
Oh, yeah. For some of the 29, like Spider-Man 2099, I liked. Most of the other ones I did not.
Yeah. Well, and the problem with these alternate lines is Marvel eventually gets bored with them, and then they just essentially run them into a brick wall, which is annoying.
Yeah, they did that with the Ultimate Universe. But the whole thing is, when you watch the MCU, that was far more Ultimate Universe than
100%.
It was complete Ultimate Universe.
Yeah.
And I did like the first 4 or 5 years. The thing because they were selling the most, they started to neglect the main storylines, the main Marvel universe, or 616 people. You know that.
And certain things they made overly gritty for no reason, like okay, like Scarlet Witch and and Quicksilver having an incestuous relationship and stuff, and it was like, is this really necessary?
They're both dead. Who cares?
Yeah, it was.
I did like the Ultimate X-Men a lot. I did like that one. Spider-Man was Ultimates and Spider-Man. That was the cornerstone.
I liked Ultimate Fantastic Four. I thought they did a really good job with that, because the Fantastic Four themselves are one of my favorite comics, but they can get a little campy and stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought like the reimagining was really well done.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not hating on that. One of the things just on the Fantastic Four, one of my favorite mega storylines, which I'm kind of fatigued about the massive storylines, was Annihilation. I love the Annihilation series, and one in the Fantastic Four was my favorite story, where they're in the negative universe and Johnny Storm blows shut the door and is consumed by the wave. That was like, I'm like, you know what? That was the Johnny Storm story. Yeah. I think that was a Hitch and Miller story too.
Yeah, it was good, but it was also one of those comic deaths off screen.
Yeah,
you just can't trust those.
Yeah, but I wasn't even into the MCU cosmic, like Quasar and all that. But I got to tell you, I loved Annihilation, the first one, because we all know it kept coming.
Yeah, I've always liked Marvel's cosmic line, because it allows them to get really trippy with some stuff.
I just could never. I mean, I like my Earth-based. That was a couple of things to me that kind of killed my interest in the X-Men. Was too much from the Days of Future Past. I get it's. I mean, okay, give me one or two. So Rachel Summers comes in. I'm like, okay, we have the heir apparent Phoenix too, but she's got a lot more limits on her. And I did like when they went to the universe and it was kind of like flipped. So you had Sugar Man and you had
Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah, the Age of Apocalypse storyline. And you had North Star was an assassin, and I really liked the grit there. But thank you for the 5-issue miniseries. Thank you very much. Now put it to bed.
Yeah.
And now we have like Bishop coming through and all the. And I'm just like.
Yeah, I mean, they're like any company that when they see something that that people like, that makes money, they're gonna milk that cow dry.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Star Trek with the Borg. one of the most terrifying, like, villains they came up with. It just suffered from we see these guys too much fatigue.
Mm-hmm. I'm like, aren't they just all in that one big ass cube floating around space? How are they everywhere now?
Which is why usually with my series, I have people saying, "Oh, we need more of this character," and it's like, you're going to get that character sparingly because I don't want to ruin that character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Less is more.
So, folks, I gotta say, it's about that time. Wendy, do you have any parting questions, or?
I did till you asked me. It wasn't real important, but I was gonna. Do you get to play? What is your favorite RPG game? Is that right? I'm sorry, I never got into that part. I loved reading of stories like yours and the whole genre there.
I mean, I've always been like a D&D guy, but I mean, I like I've always had a good time with short-lived adventures. Like I did a short-lived Call of Cthulhu campaign that was just so much fun. Back in I guess the 80s, the 90s, we would do.
How does one make a fun Call of Cthulhu? I get Octung Cthulhu and Pulp Cthulhu.
Okay, so fun playing it, not like fun with the atmosphere.
All right. I'm just like, what?
I used to have fun with like Star Frontiers and stuff.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
The original one. I mean, I enjoy a lot of these role playing games, but it just so happens that D&D is the one I played most of all, because that's the one that, like, when you sit down and you're like, hey, let's do something. That's kind of the fallback, because everybody gets to be the hero or the villain or somewhere in between, or a murder hobo.
A murder hobo?
Yep.
Okay.
It's on the socials. Yeah. I've seen it on the socials.
Okay. All right.
It basically just means you're just walking through this world, looking at other people's possessions, pretty much acknowledging that they're not people, they're just NPCs, and saying, yep, you have stuff, I want it, so I'm just going to hack you to pieces. Like playing a game of Skyrim where it's like all NPCs, like my wife will sit there and watch me play Skyrim as I'm like, breaking into people's houses and stealing their stuff. Why do you have to do that? Why not?
That's what they're here for. It's kind of like in the horror movie. It's like we have teens, Jason hacks and slashes, and then we have the final girl.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Victimless crime.
So, Rick, if folks want to get a hold of you, how can they go about doing that?
Well, pretty much on every social media, I am Rick Gualtieri. That said, if you can't, including my own website, rickgualtieri.com. That said, if you can't spell it, which I don't blame you at all, if you do a Google search for Bill the Vampire, that will pretty much bring you to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We drop those links in the chat, by the way, and we have
the
links on the Facebook event for everyone. So before we call off, Rick, thank you for being on. If you're teasing anything for 2023, we know about Shingles. We know you got a 5th book for, is it Bill of
the Dead?
Yeah, Bill of the Dead. Any other thing bouncing around in that crazy demonic evil head of yours we need to know about?
I mean, Ari Carr and I are pretty much finished with the 4th book in False Icons, Deviant Dark Dryads. Okay. That just needs to be edited. I'm working on a fantasy thriller for Falstaff Books, which is super late, but I'm trying to get it done. Yeah, I mean, and I'm going to try to finish the Bent series, the Hybrid of High Moon series this year. So I got a lot on my plate. Whether or not I actually get it all done, I guess we will see.
Well, thank you very much for being on Mystic Moon tonight.
Yes, thank you
fun.
so much.
Thank you, commenters and crowd out there, for watching and letting us know what was on your mind.
Yes.
And Happy New Year, because next time we're back, it's
Happy New Year to all.
Good riddance 2022.
Hopefully 23 is better.
We're hoping. All right. Let me stop this stream. Okay, take care.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Okay. Yay, Rick. That was fun.
Yay.
Oh, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thanks.